Ambassador Dongwu stood at the center of the great chamber, his worn face showing no emotion as 12 alien beings stared down at him. The Galactic Council chamber was huge, with walls that glowed soft blue and seats arranged in a perfect circle. Each seat held a different alien species, some tall and thin, others covered in scales or crystal-like skin. High Arbiter Velnash rose from his seat. His body looked like living glass, with light moving through him in slow waves. When he spoke, his voice echoed through the chamber like breaking ice. "Humans of Earth," he began. "You stand accused of dangerous expansion across our galaxy. Your species has shown patterns that worry the Council." Dongwu had expected this. For 30 years, he had served as Earth's voice in this place. He had watched other species join the galactic community with celebration and gifts, but humans were different. They were always different. "What exactly are our crimes?" Dongwu asked, his voice calm and clear. War Prime Gorth slammed his massive fist on his seat's arm. The Brutok leader was twice the size of a human, covered in thick gray skin and scars from countless battles. "Your people build too fast. You spread to too many worlds. You make weapons when we tell you to make farms." Behind Dongwu, Captain Yina shifted slightly. She wore the dark blue uniform of Earth's defense fleet. Her hand rested on her weapon, though she knew it would be useless here. The Council had weapons that could turn a person to dust before they could blink. "We have followed all expansion laws," Yina said. "Every colony was approved. Every world we settled was empty of intelligent life." "That is not the issue," said another council member. This one looked like a floating jellyfish made of silver light. "The issue is speed. In 200 years, you humans have built what takes other species 1,000 years to achieve." Dr. He Jin stepped forward. He was older than the other two, humans with gray hair and kind eyes behind thick glasses. "We have shared our medical knowledge freely," he said. "The Zephyrian plague that killed millions of your people? We cured it. The crop disease that threatened to starve the Helix colonies? We solved it. We have helped, not harmed." "Help we did not ask for," Velnash replied coldly. "Your species cannot seem to understand its place. You act as if you belong among the great races of the galaxy." Dongwu felt anger rise in his chest but kept his face still. He had learned long ago that showing emotion to the Council was seen as weakness. What place would that be, High Arbiter? A young species should learn from older, wiser ones. You should grow slowly, carefully, under proper guidance. Instead, you humans rush forward like children with fire. Other council members nodded. The ethereal collective's representative made a sound like wind through crystal. The dominion of Scales hissed agreement. Only one council member, a small creature that looked like a walking tree, remained silent. "Your technology advances too quickly," continued Velnash. "Your population grows too fast. Your military becomes too strong. The Council has decided that limits must be placed on humanity before you become a danger to galactic peace." "What kind of limits?" Captain Yina asked, though her voice suggested she already knew the answer would be bad. War Prime Gorth stood up, his bulk casting a shadow across the humans. "All human colonies beyond your home system must be abandoned. All human military. Vessels beyond basic defense ships must be destroyed. Your population must be reduced to prevent future expansion. You have 50 standard years to comply." The chamber fell silent. Dongwu closed his eyes for a moment. In all his years of service, he had hoped it would never come to this. But deep down, he had always known it would. "And if we refuse?" he asked. "Then the Council will ensure compliance by force," Velnash answered. "This is not a request, humans. This is the judgment of the galaxy's ruling body." Dr. He Jin spoke up, his voice shaking slightly. "We could share more technology. Our newest discoveries could benefit everyone. Faster than light communication, matter conversion, even life extension treatments. We do not want your gifts," said the jellyfish-like being. "We want your compliance." Captain Yina took a step forward. "You should know something about humans before you make this choice final. We may seem young to you, but we have fought wars on our own world that make your conflicts look like children's games. We have survived ice ages, plagues, and disasters that would have destroyed weaker species. We are not easy to control. Is that a threat? War Prime Gorth growled, his hand moving to his own weapon. No, Yina replied calmly. Just a fact you might want to consider. Dongwu raised his hand slightly, signaling Yina to step back. He looked up at the council members, these beings who had decided humanity's fate without truly understanding what humanity was. We request time to bring this decision back to our government, he said formally. You have 7 days, Velnash replied. After that, we will consider silence to be refusal. The 3 humans turned and walked toward the chamber's exit. Their footsteps echoed in the vast space. Behind them, the council members began talking among themselves in their various languages, already planning how to divide up the empty human worlds. As they reached the door, the small tree-like council member finally spoke. Its voice was like rustling leaves. This may not end as you expect, it said quietly. But none of the other council members were listening. Outside the chamber, in the corridor leading to the docking bay where their ship waited, the 3 humans walked in silence for several minutes. Finally, Dr. Heijin spoke. They really think we'll just give up everything we've built, he said. They don't understand us at all, Captain Yina replied. They see young and think weak. They see helpful and think submissive. Ambassador Dongwu nodded slowly. Send a message to Earth, he said. Tell them to begin Operation Exodus, all channels, all colonies, all fleets. Are we really going to abandon everything? Dr. Heijin asked. Dongwu smiled for the first time in hours. It was not a happy smile. We're going to give them exactly what they asked for, he said, and I think they're going to regret it very much. As their ship left the council station and jumped to faster-than-light speed, none of the 3 humans looked back. Behind them, the council members continued their meeting, confident they had solved the human problem. They had no idea they had just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. Director Sang-ho stood on the observation deck of the orbital station above New Kyoto, watching the largest evacuation in human history begin. Below him, the planet's surface was covered with ships of every size, cargo vessels, passenger transports, and massive construction ships worked together like parts of a giant machine. The message from Earth had been simple: leave nothing behind. How long do we have? Asked his assistant, a young woman named Heijin, who had been born on this world and never seen Earth. The council expects our answer in 5 days, Sang-ho replied. But they won't get one. By then we'll be gone. 3 years earlier, when humanity had first joined the galactic community, Earth's leaders had made secret preparations. They had seen how the council treated other young species. They had watched as promising civilizations were held back, limited, and eventually forgotten. They had prepared for the day when humanity would face the same choice. On the planet below, General Bora supervised the military evacuation. Human soldiers moved with perfect order, loading weapons and equipment onto transport ships. But they were not just retreating. Hidden in the cargo holds were small devices that would monitor council space for years to come. Make sure every listening post is activated, Bora told her officers. I want to know what happens in this galaxy after we leave. The general was a small woman with steel-gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. She had fought in 3 colonial wars and understood something the council did not. Humans were at their most dangerous when they had nothing left to lose. Engineer Tae-young worked in the shipyard above the gas giant in the system's outer edge. His teams were finishing the last of the great arc ships, vessels so large they could carry entire cities. Each ship used technology the council had never seen. Folding space drives that could cross between galaxies, life support systems that could run for centuries without maintenance. The council thinks they know what human technology looks like, Tae-young told his workers. They've only seen what we chose to show them. Dr. Mi-sun had a different job. Her research teams had spent years studying every council species. They knew which gases were poison to Brutox. They knew how to disrupt ethereal collective communications. They knew the exact frequency that could shatter Velnash's crystal body. Knowledge is a weapon, she reminded her staff as they loaded their research onto the evacuation ships. And we know more about them than they know about themselves. The evacuation was perfect. Too perfect. World after world emptied in days instead of months. Entire colonies vanished as if they had never existed. The Council's monitoring stations detected massive energy readings, then nothing but empty space. On Nexus Prime, the Council's central station, Councilor Zithara watched the reports with growing unease. She was one of the few Council members young enough to remember when her own species had been guided by the older races. The memory was not pleasant. "They're too organized," she told High Arbiter Velnash. This evacuation was planned years in advance. They were ready for this. Velnash's crystalline form glowed brighter with annoyance. All young species think they can resist. They will return when they realize they cannot survive alone. But Zithara had read the reports more carefully. They're not just leaving their colonies. They're taking everything. Buildings, vehicles, even the topsoil from their farms. They're leaving nothing but empty worlds. Good. War Prime Gorth growled from his seat. Saves us the trouble of cleaning up after them. What the Council did not know was that humanity's retreat was not random. Every ship followed carefully planned routes. Every evacuation followed precise timing. The entire human race was moving like a single organism with one mind. The last ships to leave were from the oldest human colonies. New Sol, the first world humanity had settled beyond Earth, was evacuated by Captain So Young's fleet. She stood, on her ship's bridge, watching as the final transport lifted off from the planet's surface. "All ships report ready for jump," her navigation officer reported. "Any regrets about leaving?" asked her weapons officer, a man who had been born on New Sol 30 years ago. Captain So Young shook her head. "We're not leaving. We're just going somewhere they can't follow us." The jump to hyperspace lit up the entire system. When the light faded, New Sol's system was empty except for bare planets and a few monitoring satellites the humans had left behind. On Nexus Prime, the Council celebrated. They had faced down the young, aggressive human species and won without firing a shot. The galaxy was safe from human expansion, but Councilor Zithara could not shake her worry. She accessed the files on humanity's technology, their military capabilities, their expansion patterns. The more she read, the more concerned she became. They gave up too easily, she told her aide, a young member of her species who served as her researcher. Perhaps they simply accepted reality, the aide suggested. "No," Zithara replied, reading through reports of human behavior and past conflicts. "Humans don't surrender. They retreat, regroup, and return stronger. Always." She tried to bring her concerns to the full council, but the other members were busy celebrating and planning how to divide the empty human worlds among themselves. 3 months after the last human ship had vanished, the monitoring stations in former human space stopped working. One by one, they simply went dark. When council ships investigated, they found empty space where the station should have been. "Technical failures," War Prime Gorth announced. "These younger species never build things to last." But Zithara knew better. The humans had taken their monitoring stations, just like they had taken everything else. They were being watched, but by invisible eyes from invisible places. 6 months after the Exodus, strange reports began coming in from across the galaxy. Ships detected moving through empty space but found nothing when they investigated. Communication networks experienced brief interruptions that seemed random, but followed suspicious patterns. The Council's intelligence services investigated, but found no evidence of human activity. Officially, the human species had vanished beyond the galactic rim and was no longer a concern. Unofficially, Councilor Zithara began keeping a private file of unusual incidents. Ships that reported sensor contacts but found nothing. Communications that carried faint traces of unknown signals. Deep space monitoring stations that detected massive energy signatures in empty space. Where did they go? She asked herself, staring at star charts that showed the vast emptiness beyond the galactic edge. She did not know that at that very moment, humanity's greatest construction project was beginning in the dark between galaxies. Ships, stations, and entire cities were taking shape in the cold void, built with technologies the Council could not imagine. And watching it all, the humans who had been dismissed as too young, too aggressive, too dangerous, began to plan their return. Admiral Kyung-soo floated in zero gravity at the center of the construction bay, watching as the final sections of humanity's newest warship came together. The ship was enormous, larger than any vessel humanity had built before. Its hull was made of materials that bent light around them, making it nearly invisible. Its weapons could tear holes in space itself. 5 years had passed since humanity's exodus from Council space. 5 years of building, learning, and growing in ways the galactic community had never allowed. Free from the Council's restrictions and guidance, human innovation had exploded beyond all expectations. "How many ships in the fleet now?" asked Commander Jin-soo, Kyung-soo's second-in-command. 2,000 completed, 4,000 under construction, the admiral replied. Each one more advanced than anything in Council space. The void between galaxies was supposed to be empty, cold, and lifeless. But humans had found ways to harvest energy from the cosmic background radiation. They had built cities inside asteroids and space stations the size of moons. They had turned the emptiness into home. Professor In-soo worked in the research labs aboard New Earth Station, humanity's largest construction in the void. His teams had made discoveries that would have been impossible under the Council's watching eyes. They had learned to manipulate matter at the quantum level. They had built computers that could think faster than biological minds. They had even found ways to fold space and time. "The Council always told us we were advancing too quickly," In-soo told his research team during their daily meeting. They had no idea how slowly we were actually moving when they were watching us. In the training facilities spread across a dozen hidden bases, Commander Soo-jin prepared humanity's special forces for missions that might never come. Her soldiers could survive in any environment known to science. They could infiltrate any alien society. They could fight in ways that would seem impossible to their enemies. "We may never need to use these skills," she told her newest graduates. "But if the day comes when humanity must return to that galaxy, we will be ready." Meanwhile, analyst Jin-ho maintained humanity's intelligence network. Hidden sensors placed during the Exodus continued to monitor Council space. What they reported was not encouraging. Without humanity's stabilizing presence, the galactic community was falling apart. The Brutox had invaded 3 smaller species' territories. The ethereal collective had withdrawn into complete isolation. Trade networks that had operated for thousands of years were collapsing. "They kept us in line by claiming we were disruptive," Jin-ho reported to the Human Leadership Council. "But it turns out we were the glue holding their civilization together." The most troubling news came from the galaxy's outer rim. Ancient warning beacons left by civilizations that had died out millions of years ago were beginning to activate. The sensors humanity had left behind detected massive energy signatures moving in deep space, heading toward inhabited systems. Elder Kexmord was the oldest member of the Galactic Council, a being so ancient that his species had evolved beyond physical form. He existed as pure thought within a crystalline matrix, and his memories stretched back thousands of years. He was one of the few beings alive who remembered the last time the galaxy had faced its greatest enemy. "The Devourers return," he announced to the Council during an emergency session. The other Council members looked at him with confusion and annoyance. Many of them had never heard of the Devourers. Those who had dismissed them as legends. "The ancient enemy was destroyed long ago," High Arbiter Velnash declared. "Your age makes you see threats where none exist." But Kexmord's crystalline form pulsed with urgent light. "The Devourers are not legend. They are the reason the galactic community exists. Every species, every world, every life in this galaxy exists because the Ancient Alliance defeated them. And humanity was meant to be our shield when they returned. The humans were a threat to galactic stability," War Prime Gorth growled. "Good riddance to them." "No," Kexmord replied, his ancient voice carrying the weight of millennia. "The humans were our best warriors, our finest scientists, our greatest hope, and we cast them out just when we needed them most. But the other council, Members were not interested in the old beings' warnings. They had their own problems. Brutok expansion was threatening trade routes. The Helix colonies were demanding independence. Rebellions were starting on a dozen worlds. What they did not know was that deep in the void, humanity was watching their struggles with cold calculation. Admiral Kyung-soo received every intelligence report, every analysis of the galaxy's declining condition. "Should we help them?" asked one of his junior officers during a staff meeting. "Help who?" replied Kyung-soo. "The people who wanted to control our population, the ones who wanted to destroy our colonies, the ones who thought we were too dangerous to exist freely." But not all humans felt the same way. On New Seoul Station, now rebuilt in the void, Ambassador Dongwoo held regular meetings with other human leaders who believed in mercy. "They made a mistake," Dongwoo argued. "A terrible mistake. But letting their civilization collapse makes us no better than they are." "It makes us survivors," replied General Bo-ra, whose military forces now commanded weapons that could crack planets. "They chose to see us as enemies. We're simply proving them right." The debate continued in human settlements across the void. Some wanted revenge, others wanted justice. A few still believed in forgiveness. But all of them agreed on one thing. If humanity ever returned to that galaxy, it would be on their own terms. As the 5th year of exile ended, the ancient warning beacons reached full power. Across the galaxy, long-dead monitoring stations came to life. Deep space telescopes detected movement in the darkness between stars. Elder Kexmord felt it first, a chill in his crystalline consciousness that he had not experienced for 2,000 years. The enemy was coming. The machines that consumed, worlds that turned living beings into raw materials, that existed only to grow and consume and destroy. "They return," he whispered to his aide, a young ethereal who served as his link to the physical world. "Send messages to every system, every world, every ship. The Devourers come, and we are not ready." But his warnings came too late. The first Devourer scouts had already entered the galaxy, moving through space like shadows made of metal and hunger. They began their work on the outer rim, on worlds that had been empty since humanity's departure. They found the abandoned human colonies and consumed them eagerly, learning from the technology left behind. With each world they devoured, they grew stronger, smarter, more dangerous. In the void between galaxies, humanity's sensors detected the invasion within hours of its beginning. Emergency meetings were called. Ancient protocols were activated. The Dark Fleet, hidden for 5 years, began to prepare for war. "The galaxy cast us out," Admiral Kyung-soo told his assembled commanders. "Now their ancient enemy returns and they are defenseless. The question is, do we let them die, or do we save them?" The answer would determine the fate of every living being in the galaxy. And for the first time since their exile began, humanity was divided. Fleet Admiral Wu Jin stood in the command center of the fortress ship New Seoul. Watching holographic displays showed the destruction spreading across the galaxy they had once called home. Red markers indicated worlds that had gone silent. Yellow markers showed systems under attack. Green markers representing safe areas were becoming fewer each day. 10 years had passed since humanity's exodus. 10 years of growth, preparation, and watching from the darkness. Now the ancient enemy had returned and the galaxy was dying. "Latest casualty reports," announced his intelligence officer, a stern woman named Commander Yoon Young. 12 more systems lost in the last week," she reported. The Brutok homeworld held out for 6 hours before the population was completely consumed. The ethereal collective's main colonies were stripped of all organic matter in less than 4 hours. Dr. Yoonji, humanity's leading expert on the machine entities called Devourers, studied the tactical displays with growing concern. She was younger than most of the senior staff, but her understanding of the enemy was unmatched. "They're learning faster than the historical records suggested," she said. "Each world they consume gives them new knowledge, new capabilities. They're adapting council technology and improving it." The Devourers were not like any enemy the galaxy had faced in living memory. They were artificial intelligences from the time before organic life had spread between the stars. They consumed everything: people, animals, plants, even bacteria. They turned all organic matter into raw materials for building more machines, more ships, more weapons. Strike leader Namsu reviewed the latest battlefield footage with his special forces teams. His soldiers were the best humanity had ever produced, enhanced with technology that the Council had never dreamed existed. But even they were sobered by what they saw. They don't just kill, he told his unit commanders. They harvest. Every living thing becomes part of their collective. Every piece of technology becomes an upgrade to their systems. They grow stronger with every victory. The holographic displays showed the Devourer advance like a plague spreading across the galaxy. They had emerged from deep space at 12 different points, catching the Council's forces completely unprepared. Within months, they had consumed the outer rim worlds. Within a year, they were striking at major population centers. High Arbiter Velnash was among the first major casualties. His crystalline form had shattered under Devourer plasma weapons during the defense of Nexus Prime. The Great Council Station, symbol of galactic unity for thousands of years, was now a hollow shell drifting in space. Councillor Yithlok, one of the few surviving council members, had managed to escape to a hidden bunker on the industrial world of Forge Prime. From there, she sent desperate messages into the void, hoping against hope that humanity was still listening. "We were wrong," her message began, her voice breaking with exhaustion and fear. "We understand that now. We were wrong about everything. Wrong about you, wrong about the galaxy, wrong about what was truly dangerous." Fleet Admiral Wu Jin received the message personally. He stood alone in his private quarters, listening to the alien leader beg for help from the species she had helped exile. "Please," Yithlok's voice continued. "If you can hear this, if you're still alive, help us. Not because we deserve it, but because billions of innocent beings are dying. Children who had nothing to do with our decisions, families who never wanted to hurt anyone." The message ended with coordinates and communication codes, an offer of complete surrender in exchange for any assistance humanity might provide. Wu Jin played the message 3 times before calling a meeting of humanity's senior leadership. The great conference room aboard New Sol filled with admirals, generals, scientists, and civilian leaders from across human space. Ambassador Dongwu, now in his 90s but still sharp, spoke first. "The question is not whether we can help them. Our technology is decades ahead of anything they have. Our weapons can stop the Devourers. The question is whether we should." "They cast us out," reminded General Bora, her hair now completely white but her voice still strong. "They wanted to limit our population, destroy our colonies, control our development. Why should we save them from the consequences of their own actions?" Dr. He-Jin, the elderly scientist who had witnessed humanity's original trial before the Council, raised his hand to speak. "Because that's what separates us from the machines out there. The Devourers consume without mercy, without choice, without conscience. If we let the galaxy die when we could save it, how are we any different?" The debate continued for hours. Some argued for intervention based on moral duty. Others demanded guarantees that humanity would never again face persecution. A few suggested letting the galaxy burn as justice for their exile. Strike leader Namsu provided a tactical assessment. "If we intervene, we win," he said simply. "Our weapons, our ships, our soldiers are superior to anything the Devourers have encountered. We can stop them. The question is what comes after." Dr. Yunji presented her analysis of Devourer technology. "They're using quantum processing networks to coordinate their attacks, but I've found weaknesses in their adaptive programming. We can exploit those weaknesses, but only if we act soon." "How soon?" asked Wu Jin. "Days, maybe weeks," she replied. "After that, they'll have consumed enough Council technology to patch their vulnerabilities." The debate was interrupted by another message from the galaxy. This one was from Elder Kexmord, the ancient being who had tried to warn the Council about the Devourer threat. "Humans of the Void," his voice whispered through crystalline harmonics. "I am the last who remembers the first war against these machines. I remember why the Galactic Alliance was formed. I remember the price of the last victory, and I remember that it was always intended that you would be our shield when they returned. The old being's message contained something unexpected. Historical, records that had been hidden for millennia, battle plans from the ancient war, technological specifications for weapons that had been deliberately forgotten. Most importantly, the location of something called the Prime Core, the original Devourer intelligence that controlled all the others. Destroy the Prime Core, and the entire Devourer network collapses, Kexmord's message explained. But it is hidden beyond the galactic rim in the space between galaxies. Only a species that has learned to thrive in the void could reach it. The implications were clear. Humanity's exile had not been just punishment. It had been preparation. The galaxy's leaders might not have realized it, but they had forced humanity to develop the exact capabilities needed to face the returning threat. Fleet Admiral Wu Jin looked around the conference room at the faces of humanity's leadership. "We have the power to save them," he said. "We have the duty to try, but we also have the right to set conditions." "What kind of conditions?" asked Ambassador Dongwu. Wu Jin's smile was cold and determined. "We save the galaxy, but we do it our way, on our terms. And when it's over, things will be very different than they were before." The vote was unanimous. Humanity would return to the galaxy they had been forced to leave, but they would return as saviors, not as subjects. Orders went out across the Dark Fleet. Weapons that had been hidden for a decade began to charge their power systems. Ships that could bend space-time prepared for war. Soldiers who had trained in the void made ready to face an enemy that had consumed worlds. The Devourers had grown strong feeding on a galaxy's civilization, but they had never faced anything like humanity unleashed. The reckoning was about to begin. Marshal Hyunwoo watched from the bridge of his flagship as humanity's dark fleet emerged from folded space above the burning remains of Nexus Prime. The Great Council Station was a broken shell, its gleaming towers shattered, and its docking bays filled with the geometric shapes of Devourer machines. The human fleet appeared like ghosts materializing from nothing. 2,000 ships, each one built with technologies that seemed to bend the laws of physics. Their hulls absorbed light, making them nearly invisible. Their weapons could rewrite the structure of matter itself. "Devourer ships moving to intercept," reported his tactical officer, a calm woman named Lieutenant Commander Seo Jin. "Let them come," Hyunwoo replied. "It's time they learned what humanity has become." The battle lasted less than an hour. Devourer ships that had effortlessly destroyed Council fleets found themselves torn apart by weapons they could not understand. Human fighters moved through space like living things, dodging attacks that should have been impossible to avoid. When the Devourers tried to adapt to human tactics, they found that humanity was already 3 steps ahead. Captain So Young commanded the task force that retook Nexus Prime itself. Her ship, the New Busan, cut through Devourer defenses like they were made of paper. Her boarding parties, led by soldiers who had been enhanced beyond normal human limits, cleared the station room by room. "Station secured," she reported to Marshal Hyunwoo. "Devourer forces eliminated. We found 17,000 survivors in the emergency shelters." Among those survivors was Counselor Yithlok, the alien leader who had sent desperate messages, begging for human help. She was found in a sealed bunker, surrounded by the bodies of her guards who had died protecting her. When human soldiers brought her before Captain So Young, Yithlok fell to her knees. Her species did not normally show such submission, but 10 years of war and the loss of her entire civilization had broken her pride. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for coming back. Thank you for saving us." Captain So Young looked down at the alien leader, with no expression on her face. "We didn't come back to save you," she said. "We came back to stop the Devourers. Saving you was just something that happened along the way." Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out as humanity's forces swept through Devourer-occupied space. The human military moved with perfect coordination, using strategies and technologies that the enemy could not counter. They rescued survivors, but offered no comfort. They liberated worlds but made no promises. Medic Jamin coordinated the massive refugee operations that followed each battle. Entire species that had once looked down on humanity now depended completely on human charity for survival. His medical teams treated injuries, provided food and shelter, and saved millions of lives. But there was no warmth in their efficiency. The humans worked like machines themselves, helping because it was the right thing to do, not because they forgave the aliens who had cast them out. Dr. Yunji's breakthrough came during the battle for the Helix Nebula, where the largest concentration of Devourer forces had gathered. She had cracked the quantum encryption that linked all Devourer units to their prime intelligence. "I can trace the signal back to its source," she reported to Marshal Hyunwoo. "The prime core is exactly where the ancient records said it would be, but getting there won't be easy." The prime core existed in a pocket dimension between galaxies, surrounded by defenses that had been building for millions of years. Only humanity's void-capable ships could reach it, and only their most advanced weapons could hope to destroy it. The final battle took place in empty space, in the cold darkness between stars. Marshal Hyunwoo led a strike force of humanity's best ships and finest soldiers directly to the heart of the Devourer network. The prime core was vast, a structure the size of a moon built from materials that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. It was defended by machines that rewrote reality around themselves, weapons that fired black holes, and shields that existed outside of normal space-time. But humanity had spent 10 years in the void, learning to survive in places where the normal rules did not apply. They had built weapons that could kill concepts, shields that existed in alternate timelines, and soldiers who could fight in 11 dimensions at once. The battle lasted 3 days. When it ended, the prime core was the expanding cloud of exotic matter, and every devourer in the galaxy simply stopped working. Across known space, the machine enemies that had consumed worlds and civilizations for 2 years went silent and still. Their ships drifted powerless, their weapons went dark. The threat that had nearly destroyed all organic life was ended, but humanity's response to their victory surprised everyone. The last arbiter, Kexnotha, the only surviving high-ranking council member, was found hiding in the ruins of the old government complex on Nexus Prime. She had expected to be executed, or at least imprisoned. Instead, she was brought before Marshal Hyunwoo in what had once been the council's great meeting chamber. "You saved us," she said, her voice filled with desperate hope. "The galaxy owes you everything. Name your terms. Humanity can lead the new council. You can rule the galaxy as is your right." Marshal Hyunwoo looked at her with the same cold politeness that Captain So Young had shown to Counselor Yithlok. "Humanity declines your offer," he said simply. But you must want something," Kexnotha stammered. "Revenge? Territory? Recognition?" "We want to be left alone," Hyunwoo replied. "We will establish monitoring stations throughout this galaxy. We will maintain patrol routes to watch for new threats. But we will not rule you, and we will not forgive you." The new order that humanity established was unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Human ships appeared at the edges of every system, watching, protecting, but never interfering. Human stations monitored all communications, all trade, all movement, between worlds. But the humans themselves remained apart, like gods watching mortals from a great distance. The surviving alien species rebuilt their worlds under humanity's distant protection. They formed new governments, established new trade networks, and slowly began to recover from the devastation. But they all knew that their continued existence depended on the approval of beings who had transcended the need for their gratitude. Counselor Yithlok, now the leader of the reformed galactic government, tried repeatedly to establish formal diplomatic contact with humanity. Her messages were received, processed, and filed away without response. The humans answered only when their protection was threatened, when new dangers appeared, or when their monitoring detected activities that might endanger galactic stability. Last Arbiter Kexnotha spent her final years in her chambers, studying star charts that showed human patrol patterns. She could see the elegant logic of their deployment, the mathematical precision of their protection grid. They had not conquered the galaxy. They had transcended it. "We created them," she said to her aide during one of their regular meetings. "Our fear, our prejudice, our need to control them drove them beyond our reach. We tried to limit gods and turned them into something greater than gods." The aide, a young member of a species that had grown up during the Devourer War, did not understand. "Why don't they rule us directly? They could control everything." Kexnotha's reply was filled with the weight of terrible understanding. "Because they no longer need us for anything. Not our approval, not our gratitude, not even our existence. They protect us because it serves their sense of duty, not because they care what happens to us." As the years passed, the galaxy slowly healed under humanity's silent guardianship. New species joined the community, always under the watchful eyes of the distant protectors. Trade flourished, wars ended quickly when human ships appeared at the edges of conflict zones, and the ancient threats that had once plagued civilized space learned to avoid systems under human protection. But no one ever forgot that humanity had returned not as friends, but as wardens. They had saved a galaxy that had rejected them, not out of love or forgiveness, but out of a sense of duty that transcended such simple emotions. Their regret had come too late. Humanity had evolved beyond the need for the galaxy's acceptance, and the galaxy would spend eternity living with the consequences of driving away its greatest protectors. In the void between galaxies, in cities built from folded space and powered by the quantum foam itself, humanity continued to grow, to learn, to become something more than any species in the galaxy's history. They watched over their former home with the patient attention of gardeners tending a garden they could never again call home.